Russia's history is vast, stretching across centuries and continents, filled with triumph, tragedy, eccentric rulers, and unexpected twists. Beyond the familiar tales of czars, revolutions, and wars lie stories that are so unusual they sound like fiction. From emperors who ruled as children, to a monk who nearly controlled the royal court, to military operations that defied belief, Russian history offers countless surprises. Here are 10 astonishing stories from Russia's past, narratives that reveal the country's eccentric, dramatic, and unforgettable spirit. Story 1. The Tsar Who Crowned Himself, Ivan the Terrible's Coronation. In 1547, a 16-year-old boy named Ivan Vasilievich was crowned as the first Tsar of all Russia. Until then, Russian rulers had been known as Grand Princes, but Ivan wanted something greater. Inspired by the Byzantine emperors, he crowned himself with a magnificent cap decorated with sable fur and jewels, later known as the Monomach's cap. What made it so astonishing, Ivan did not wait for the church or the nobility to legitimize him. Instead, he declared himself God's chosen ruler, answering to no one. This was the birth of Russia's autocracy. The same Ivan would later become infamous as Ivan the Terrible, both feared and admired for his ruthless rule, violent temper, and centralization of power. His coronation was the beginning of Russia as a true empire shaped by absolute monarchy. Story 2. The time Russia almost had a French Tsar. After the death of Tsar Alexander I in 1825, Russia was thrown into confusion. His brother Constantine had secretly renounced the throne, but this was not widely known. For a brief moment, people thought Constantine Pavlovich would be Tsar. But here's the twist. Constantine had married a Polish noblewoman and preferred life in Warsaw. He had no interest in ruling Russia. Meanwhile, a group of idealistic officers, known as the Decembrists, tried to use the chaos to stage an uprising in St. Petersburg, demanding constitutional reform. The revolt was crushed, and Nicholas I, Alexander's younger brother, became Tsar instead. But imagine if Constantine had taken the crown. Russia might have had a Tsar more tied to Poland than Moscow, a scenario that could have changed the empire's destiny. Story 3. The boy emperor who played with toys, Tsar Ivan VI. Few rulers in history have had as tragic a fate as Ivan VI. Crowned as an infant in 1740, he technically became emperor at just 2 months old. His reign lasted little more than a year before Elizabeth, daughter of Peter the Great, seized the throne. What makes Ivan's story astonishing is what happened afterward. For the rest of his life, he was kept in isolation, first in monasteries, then in prisons. Guards were forbidden even to speak his name. He grew up without friends, books, or normal human contact. By the time he was a young man, Ivan had no real understanding of the world. When soldiers tried to free him in 1764, Catherine the Great ordered him killed to prevent him from ever reclaiming the throne. The forgotten emperor remains a haunting symbol of Russia's turbulent succession struggles. Story 4. The bearded prophet who shook the empire, Rasputin. No story of Russian history is more bizarre than that of Grigory Rasputin, the Siberian peasant-turned-mystic who became an intimate of the last imperial family. Rasputin claimed to have healing powers, and when Tsarevich Alexei, the heir to the throne, suffered from life-threatening hemophilia, Rasputin seemed able to calm his bleeding episodes. For Tsarina Alexandra, this made him indispensable, but Rasputin's influence, eccentric behavior, and rumored debauchery made him despised by nobles and politicians. Desperate to rid Russia of his sway, a group of aristocrats plotted his murder in 1916. They poisoned him, shot him, beat him, and finally drowned him in the icy Neva River. Astonishingly, legend says Rasputin survived several attempts on his life that night before finally dying. Whether fact or myth, his story illustrates how superstition, desperation, and scandal could destabilize an empire already on the brink of revolution. Story 5. The Siege of Leningrad, a city that refused to die. During World War II, Nazi forces surrounded Leningrad, today St. Petersburg, for 872 days, one of the longest and deadliest sieges in history. The people of Leningrad endured unimaginable suffering, hunger so severe that citizens ate wallpaper paste and boiled leather. Yet, despite the horrors, the city never surrendered. Musicians performed symphonies under bombardment. Factories continued to produce weapons, and people documented their struggles in diaries that remain heartbreaking testimonies today. Astonishingly, even as hundreds of thousands perished, life went on. Couples married, children attended school, and artists painted. The resilience of Leningrad became a defining symbol of Russian endurance. Story 6. The Empress Who Wrote to Voltaire, Catherine the Great's Double Life. Catherine the Great reigned 1762 to 1796, is remembered as one of Russia's greatest rulers. But behind her imperial image lies an astonishing personal life. On one hand, she was a fierce modernizer, corresponding with Enlightenment philosophers like Voltaire and Diderot, promoting education and expanding Russia's borders. On the other, she was a woman navigating a male-dominated court, managing political intrigue, and balancing numerous personal relationships. Catherine seized power after overthrowing her own husband, Peter III, in a coup. She went on to rule for more than 3 decades, presiding over Russia's golden age. Her ability to survive scandal, rebellion, and even assassination plots while projecting power and intellect was nothing short of remarkable. Story 7. The day the Kremlin was blown up in 1812, Napoleon's army invaded Moscow, expecting to occupy a wealthy capital. Instead, the city was eerily deserted and then consumed by mysterious fires. As French soldiers struggled to survive in the burning city, they tried to blow up the Kremlin before retreating. The explosions damaged towers and cathedrals, but much of the Kremlin survived. What makes the story astonishing is how Moscow's own people had burned much of their city, rather than allow Napoleon to enjoy its riches. Napoleon had hoped to conquer Russia in a swift campaign. Instead, he left Moscow in defeat, his army devastated by winter and starvation, a turning point that would lead to his downfall. Story 8. The Ice March of the Russian Civil War. After the 1917 revolution, Russia plunged into a brutal civil war between the red, Bolshevik, and white, anti-Bolshevik armies. One of the most astonishing episodes was the Ice March of 1918. The White Army, led by General Kornilov, retreated across southern Russia in the dead of winter. With little food, no proper clothing, and temperatures plunging below freezing, soldiers trudged hundreds of kilometers across snow-covered plains. Many perished along the way, yet those who survived considered it a badge of honor. The march symbolized both the suffering and the determination of Russians caught in a conflict that reshaped the nation. To Story 9, the cosmonaut who almost didn't return, Yuri Gagarin's secret landing. In 1961, Yuri Gagarin became the first human to journey into space, circling the Earth in the spacecraft Vostok 1. His flight was hailed worldwide as a triumph of Soviet science. But the astonishing truth is that Gagarin didn't actually land inside his capsule. At the end of his flight, he ejected and parachuted separately to the ground. Why is this important? According to international aviation rules, a pilot had to land with their craft to officially count as completing a flight. The Soviets initially kept this detail secret, fearing it would undermine their achievement. Nevertheless, Gagarin became a hero not just to Russians, but to the entire world, a symbol of human courage reaching beyond Earth. Story 10. The day a runaway tank saved Moscow. In 1941, as Nazi forces advanced toward Moscow, chaos filled the outskirts of the city. According to one astonishing tale, a Soviet tank crew abandoned their damaged machine, only for the tank, left in gear, to roll downhill unmanned into a column of German troops. The Germans panicked, believing it was an attack. The confusion disrupted their advance, giving Soviet defenders precious time. While historians debate the accuracy of this story, it has become part of Moscow's wartime folklore, a reminder that in desperate times, even accidents can change the course of battle. From child emperors and eccentric mystics to space pioneers and wartime survivors, Russia's history is filled with astonishing stories that defy expectation. These tales remind us that history is not just about wars and rulers, but also about the resilience, strangeness, and creativity of people navigating extraordinary circumstances. Russia's past is vast, unpredictable, and endlessly fascinating, much like the nation itself.